In this worksheet on limitless awareness, we'll learn to identify less with our thoughts and emotions as the self, and identify instead with the vast and spacious awareness that notices and recognizes those thoughts and emotions. And in that process, we free ourselves from a fixed identity, and we open ourselves to potential, the possibility to become whoever it is that we'd like to become. So before we begin, let's just check in with how mindful we've been in our day so far. Have you brought mindful awareness to your heart, your mind, the body and the breath, and the space around you? And before we begin, pause for a moment to think about why it is that you chose this topic, limitless awareness. What attracted you? And then as we move through the worksheet, keep in mind mindfulness, noticing how your body feels, noticing if there's any emotions that you associate with the feelings that arise. Notice if you already have any positive or negative stories that you're telling yourself about this topic, and notice that too as we go through the worksheet. And then remember that others feel the same way you do about this topic. Remember too that you might feel differently after we increase our awareness around limitless awareness itself. And as we move through the worksheet, think about how you might apply the ideas that we talk about here to your everyday life. So, limitless awareness. When we think about who it is that we are, we commonly identify with the self as the activity of the mind, our thoughts and our emotions. And we do this unintentionally. But when we identify with thoughts and emotions as who we are, this way of thinking can get us stuck. We can be either stuck in a particular emotion for too long because we've grasped onto it as our identity. And we can see this in the ways that we say things like, I am sad, I am angry, right? Or the way we attach our identity to thoughts can get us trapped in either defending a singular position because it's who we are, defending a singular idea, or we can become trapped in rumination and stuck with one particular thought for far too long, right? And what happens then when our ideas change? We know, for example, that memory is a malleable thing, and our thoughts and emotions about past events can change. Something that we once saw as terrible or challenging, we might now look back upon as one of the best things that ever happened to us, right? And this is all part of our growth. And so when our identity is trapped or stuck in thinking or feeling one way, when our identity is tied to thoughts and emotions, we limit this growth and we limit ourselves. And we don't want to get rid of thoughts and emotions, right? They're, of course, important and necessary elements of human life. They allow us to feel into the fullness of the human experience. But we don't want to become attached, and we don't want to identify and connect the self to those thoughts and emotions. So who are we then? Well, we are then this limitless awareness across which these thoughts and emotions move and dance and play. The mind is always in motion. And we can think of thoughts and emotions, for example, as weather or as clouds in the sky. They're always in motion, It's always changing. It comes and it goes. But the sky itself remains stable. The sky is ever present, and it's vast, and it's infinite and spacious. And this is who you really are. You are the sky. Your spacious and infinite sky-like awareness. And in this infinite awareness is infinite potential. And when you recognize this potential and you become to identify with the sky more than the clouds, you free yourself from this fixed identity and you open yourself to the possibility that you can be whomever it is that you would like to be. So we'll move on to a brief meditation. Help us recognize our spaciousness and who it is that we really are. So take a seat in a quiet place where you can be free from distractions. And right now you can simply follow along, but if you're doing this meditation on your own, it's helpful to set a timer for 5-10 minutes or more. So close your eyes or keep your gaze soft and low towards the earth. And turn your attention to your breath. Just breathe quietly and patiently in and out through your nose. And although we're focused on the breath, we want this focus to feel loose and easy rather than tight. Not a strained focus, but a spacious focus. So perhaps imagining that we're focusing about 25% of the effort of the mind on the breath. Watching the breath as it moves in and out through your nose. Or feeling the breath, sensing the breath as it physically moves through the body. About 25% of the mind's effort on breath. And then with another 25% of your effort, we'll activate a second part of the mind that's paying attention to whether or not we're still watching the breath. So some part of the mind on the breath, and some part of the mind is just recognizing, are we watching the breath or has the mind wandered off to something else? And the rest of the mind can just rest spaciously. Awareness of breath. And then we have another part of the mind that's witnessing, watching, checking in on whether or not we're aware of breath with that first part of the mind. And then over time, we come to see that there's a third part of the mind, a second witness, that's watching and noticing whether or not our first witness is still paying attention to whether or not we are aware of the breath. And perhaps we can go further back. A fourth part of the mind that notices whether or not the third part of the mind is witnessing, still watching, paying attention to whether or not that second part of the mind is watching us pay attention to the breath. And it goes back and back and back. So in your meditation, watching the breath, aware of breath, and aware too of the witness, the watcher, who's watching that watcher, who notices the watcher that's watching the watcher that's witnessing the breath. And as the mind gets confused, we just open up into that confusion and rest in the spaciousness that confusion creates. And we can feel free to hit pause, remain with that spaciousness and with breath awareness for as long as you'd like to. Open, spacious, curious, recognizing the infinite awareness that is you. And when you're ready to end the meditation, we'll slowly open the eyes and come back into this space and review what it is that we noticed. So as we go through these questions, feel free to hit pause at any time to spend more time writing down your answers or thinking about what you became a little more mindful of. But we'll begin with describing your experience with the meditation in general. And then describe the difference between the mind or the part of the mind that was watching the breath, aware of breath, and the mind that was noticing whether or not you were still watching the breath. What did that feel like? What did you notice? How did you identify the two? And then were you able to go further back and notice the third part of the mind, right? That which was witnessing this watching mind that was watching whether or not we were still on breath. And how far back were you able to take your attention, and what did that feel like? And do you think that if you practice this meditation daily, perhaps, that you would be able to recognize this witness of the mind and take it back further and further and further? And as the mind became confused and we were asked to just relax and rest in that spaciousness that arises, what did that feel like? And could you even connect to that sensation, that openness? And if so, what do you think is the benefit of spending time just simply resting in that openness, that vastness? And do you think that you could hold a sense of connection to that spaciousness and yet still watch and be aware of the breath? And if you could remember that feeling of spaciousness, that infinite awareness throughout your day and not lose track of it, how would your day be different? And what does it even mean when we say awareness is infinite? Infinite. We spoke earlier of how there's infinite potential in infinite awareness. And why would that be the case? So let's review. When we attach to thoughts and emotions, we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves by attaching our identity to just one thing, right? One person with one set of ideas, one set of emotions or tendencies, right? And while we each have our habits, we are not our habits. We are not our thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions are energy. And like all energy, they're in continual motion, always moving, always at play. So when left to do their thing, they will change and dissipate and move. And our own potential for change increases when we recognize that we are more than just our current state of being or our current ideas, right? We are this awareness of our state of being, and this awareness is infinite and it is spacious. So if we can practice by identifying more with this awareness rather than the superficial activity of the mind, then we can tap into this spaciousness. And when we tap into that spaciousness, we open ourselves to the possibility of limitless growth, happiness, and contentment, right? And all of this comes by expanding our awareness and by extension, our identity to all things. We become more connected to the things and the people around us, and in that process, we become more free. And through that freedom, we experience contentment and joy all the time.